Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Natalie MARINHO, and I'm engagement designer and co-founder at Hummingbird Interactive. We're a Singapore-based company. We're a consultancy working in specialising in gamification and motivational design. And we have very varied background within our team, including people that have worked or studied in psychology, anthropology, game design and research, education, counselling, and management consulting and project management. And my talk today is about community engagement, and specifically communities in online environments, and how engaging players within those environments can actually benefit your serious games objectives, and also enhance the probability of real-world impact and real-world behaviour change. So I think it's always interesting to find out what other people in the industry are playing. So these are the games that I'm playing at the moment. Heavy Rain has a great focus on narrative and character development. I also don't shun social or mobile games, so I play Words with Friends with my friends and family overseas on Facebook. And yes, I'm playing Farmville 2, which has some pretty amazing 3D graphics. And you have to admit, love it or hate it, it has some pretty diabolical game design when it comes to getting people hooked and spamming their friends in Facebook. So it's something definitely worth checking out if you haven't done so already. A couple of people have already made mention of gamification over the last couple of days in the conference, but no one's, and thanks to Alban for talking about gamification 1.0 and 2.0, which I totally agree with, but I'll just take a moment to go into a bit more detail about gamification in the landscape today. So if you're looking for a concrete and universal definition of gamification, I'm afraid there isn't one, because it's still a relatively new field that's been, although it has been around for a while, in its current form and known as gamification, it's fairly new. And this is a definition that we found applying the psychological principles of game design to improve user experience and engagement. But we feel that even this definition doesn't really encompass everything that gamification can do, because although it borrows principally from principles of game design, it can also capture elements from a wide range of other disciplines like anthropology, sociology, and more recently behavioural economics. Because when you're talking about users engaging in a system in real time, you really need to appreciate the context within in which they're operating, and things like triggers and feedback loops and psychographics and demographics at the same time. And so the terminology that we at Hummingbird are moving towards is this idea of motivational design. So how do we motivate and engage users in a way that fulfills your serious game objectives, whether that's in an organisation or a learning institute? The other confusing part of gamification is there are a lot of applications in the landscape today. They cover a range of different platforms and applications. And I think the relationship that gamification has to serious games is in being able to realign this landscape along a spectrum. So on one hand, you have elements of game design. So the very basic or classical gamification design is PBL, which is points, badges, and leaderboards. But as Alban pointed out, we're definitely moving towards a kind of gamification 2.0 that is much more complex and structured and nuanced in its application of those elements into a game design framework. So what you see on the far right of the spectrum is a fully bodied game, which is probably what most of you would conceive of as a serious game. But for the developers and the audience, it's difficult to describe or have a definition for what is a game, let alone what is a serious game. I've heard this coined a few terms today, like, is it a simulation? Is it training? Is it advergaming? You know, but we're all here, so we all believe that in some part does fall under the definition of a serious game. But what these all have in common is they want to bring the user to a state of being, Zen-like experience, where they feel that they can level up in the real world as much as they can in the game-like world, and so that they can improve their personal development at work or through learning or education, and have game elements or games help them in that process. And so my talk is on community, and I find that a lot of serious games at the moment focus on the user and the user's experience, which is completely correct. But as the English poet John Donne once said, no man is an island. And in fact, the complete line from his poem is, no man is an island entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. And so this is what I think a lot of game designers often forget, is they think about the individual's experience within this game system, but they forget that people are part of a community in real life. So if you're looking to have a serious impact in real life or real behaviour change, you need to take into account communities. And all of us are part of communities in the real world. We're part of our local community, which is based on geography of where we live, a nostalgic attachment to where we grew up, or based on sporting organisations or religious belief. These are communities. But what exactly are these social connections that make communities? And Tom Tyler, who's Professor of Psychology at the New York University, wrote a book last year called Why We Cooperate and the Role of Social Motivations. And his response to this question about what communities are is that they are long-term connections to groups that are based on attitudes, emotional connections, shared identities, common values, trust in the character and motivations of others, and a joint commitment to using fair procedures to exercise authority and make decisions. And I'm sure as people involved in the game industry that you can see most, if not all of these elements are inherent in online communities and online gaming situations. So first of all, we'll take a step into looking at online communities and the way that they've been built up in multiplayer online games. Because although social media, which has been around for roughly half a decade, has really embraced this idea of community management and community engagement, multi-user online environments have actually been around for over 3 decades. So there's a wealth of information and learning that we can gather from those environments and apply to real life. And before I go on, can I just have a show of hands of people who have played in MMORPGs or online environments? Don't be shy now. Okay, yeah, okay, so that's good. So you'll probably be familiar with some of these examples that I'm going to go through. So one important element that communities allow individuals is the ability to create an identity. And this is very different in an online community to outside. So if you've played Skyrim, you're more than familiar with the really intricate ways that you can customise your avatar and all the different things you can do with your facial features and hair and things like this. But in an online community, it's incredibly different because what you're actually doing is creating a character that you're going to be engaging with other people. So this is what people see when they interact with you. And Robbie Cooper is a British photographer who conducted a project where he took pictures of people in the real world and put them alongside their avatars in things like Second Life and World of Warcraft. And so you can see here that people can change anything about them compared to the real world. For instance, their hair colour, their ethnicity, their gender, to a complete physical overhaul of who they are in real life. So you don't have to be who you want to, but you can. And I think this is interesting and cause a reflection for people about how they want to show themselves to others in an online environment. And related to this idea of how we present others is how we perceive other people in the same community. This is the cast of an online comedy series called The Guild, which is based on a kind of WoW environment. And if you haven't watched it already, I really recommend it because it's a free online series. And as you can see, this group is made up of people who are completely different. And the picture in the bottom is them dressed up as their avatars in the guild. But think about it, when you interact with people online through avatars, you don't have any idea about what they look like, what they wear. You can't make any decisions or based on stereotypes because you're really interacting with just an avatar, just a chat box. And a case in point is how many real-world relationships this has eventuated in. In fact, one of my best friends got married earlier in the year, and she married a guy who they met online through a MMORPG. And one of them's from Singapore and the other one's from South Africa, completely different racial backgrounds, religious, cultural backgrounds, and yet they met because they were both senior clan administrators. So they had ongoing contact every day and they fought and they debated about all the clan politics and they really got to know each other before they even had any idea about what they looked like or any other kind of details about their background. So I think this is also really important to note. And communities also provide roles and responsibilities for people within them. So definitely within a clan or a guild, you have certain responsibilities attached to your type of class of character, whether you're a healer or a warrior or a soldier. But outside of that guild, there's also responsibilities to the community at large. So if you're running a clan, you have certain responsibilities like to turn up to raids on time, to coordinate the raids, get everybody's schedules in sync so that they can arrive at the same time and know when they're supposed to attack. And so this is incredibly time consuming. And don't forget, this happens outside of the game. So despite all the time that people spend playing the game, which could be 30 to 40 hours a week, they're actually spending all this time on the management and the administration and being involved in this community on top of all of that. Another game that demonstrates this level of commitment that people have to these communities is Minecraft. So the community in Minecraft is amazing. The degree to which people have created these online environments from scratch to create virtual buildings or ones that are familiar to us in the real world. And this again takes a lot of time and effort. But what's amazing in the Minecraft community is that they want to share this with other people in the community. So a friend of mine is known as the Australian Minecrafter on YouTube, and he's uploaded over 130 videos to YouTube, and each is at least 30 minutes long. And he's married, has a full-time job and a 2-year-old daughter, and he's very social, so he doesn't hide away. And yet he manages to carve out the time that's required each week to film, edit, upload these videos. And I said to him, dude, why do you spend so much time doing this? And he said it's because of the community, because he feels that he gets as much out of that community as he puts in, because he gets feedback on his videos, he gets people sending messages of thanks, and he actually becomes a mentor for other people who are very new to this environment. And I think anyone who's been involved in an online collective community or online gaming experience are very familiar with that noob versus mentor relationship, where the older, more experienced people will help the newer recruits, if you like. And I mean, wouldn't that be great if we saw that in more enterprises today? The other aspect that you see in communities is the metagame. So despite what we as game designers build for the players to engage with, they'll always find another game to play on top of that. So whether it's having generated the most discussion points in a forum, whether it's having the coolest avatar or the most awesome collection of weapons than anybody else, these are the games that people play. And again, it's sustaining their engagement with this community and the game over a long period of time. And my last example from the gaming world is EVE Online, which is a phenomenally large, expansive universe of 7,500 star systems, each with its own moons, planets, stars, and asteroids. And you can navigate this entire experience. And it's interesting that the developers themselves see a real importance in encouraging real-life interaction. And I'll just read from their homepage, which says that real experiences with real people are at the heart of EVE Online. Together with the official Fan Fest in Iceland, a special aspect of the community is the many player-run meets held all over the world. Players also contribute through blogs, wikis, fan sites, and even training corporations in-game. The community helps to shape the future of EVE through the community of stellar management and regular forum and social media interactions with the developer. So the developer really appreciates and acknowledges the fact that in order to keep this game going and to be financially viable into the future, they need to actively engage their community and get the community to be involved in themselves. So looking at serious games now and how we can take some of these lessons from the online communities and apply them to serious games, I think it's good to start at the beginning of serious gaming, and perhaps one of the earliest edutainment titles was Where in the World Was Carmen Sandiego? And it was a great title for its day, and certainly very interactive and engaging compared to other styles of teaching at that time. But the only drawback is that it was a very parallel experience for students, in that only one person can engage with that content at a time. And fast forwarding to 2012 today, although we have the technology to allow multiple users to access one networked environment, do we really encourage community involvement within these players simultaneously? And I'm not just talking about multiplayer game mechanics, I'm talking about actually actively engaging in conversations and development and these meta games. So an example from the gamification or serious gaming world is WooBoard, which was developed by an Australian startup and is currently being used by high-profile companies like LinkedIn, Amazon Web Services and Westpac Bank. And it's basically an enterprise platform that allows employers and peers to reward other employees through the currency of woos. So basically, if someone else in your team does an awesome job, you give them a woo and it gets tracked on this dashboard. But what it really facilitates within this community of a teamwork environment within a company is recognition and visibility. So think about feedback processes within your organisation today. If it's like the ones that I've worked in previously, you only get feedback once a year, and usually that's tied to a financial incentive like a bonus. But here what we see is real-time engagement between the employer and the employee. So if they've done a great job today, you can let everybody else in the company know about it today and get that instant feedback. And I think one of the things that gamification does really well is to encourage these feedback loops. So we have a direct relationship between action and consequence. And that really motivates employees to do better in their job, or to at least see what a behaviour is valorised within their companies. Stack Overflow is a famous website for software programmers and engineers, and it basically works as a question and answer website where people can post questions and then other people can provide answers. And the game elements they use are things like being able to vote up answers that they consider best respond to a question, but also things like traditional things like badges, having completed certain groups of activities within the community and contributing to forums and providing advice. And one interesting thing that they do is, here's a list of the top users within this community. So you can see that they've all got the highest level of points for having contributed to this community. But because it's a collaborative environment, they're not wanting to accentuate the idea of competition. Like, people are helping themselves in this website and helping each other. So you don't see a leaderboard. This isn't ranked in a very explicit way. It's just more of a recognition for the contribution, the time that people have spent within this community. MindBloom is a web application that's designed for personal improvement, so helping people to progress certain areas of their lives, whether it's creativity, finance, health, and things like this. And you do it through the nurturing of a virtual plant. So when you plan these activities and you complete them, you can water and add sunshine to your plant, and it grows and it makes you feel good. But the interesting thing is that it allows you to tap into existing networks. So MindBloom, which is what this application is called, understands that your progress is linked to people that you know, your friends, your family, your colleagues. So what you can actually do is create this network of trees into a forest. So you can actually see how your friends and family are going and encourage them and share content like videos and music that you find uplifting, and send messages of encouragement. And I think it's a form of positive monitoring. So you're more likely to go for a run if you know that someone's going to ask you, did you go for that run? So it makes everybody who cares about you able to help monitor and encourage you in your progress. Evoke was a 10-week online game commissioned by the World Bank Institute and actually won 2010's Social Game of the Year at the New York Games for Change Festival. And what it did was it encouraged young people from all around the world to access the content on the website in a range of different areas that affected global issues like food scarcity, water shortages, and gender empowerment. But the interesting thing that they did was they really wanted people to have real-world impact and real-world behaviour change. So they encouraged people to go into their local communities, visit NGOs and other small organisations, and do research and talk to people and find out more about these topics, and then share these through videos, images and blog posts. And it was very incredibly application of that game at the time. And my last example from the serious game world is an American company called Opower. And what they've done is they've liaised with 70 different utility companies that service 10 million different accounts in the US, and they've actually added game elements to the way that energy is reported to individual users. And they do this through a variety of features. For example, you can see just visually looking at the account, it doesn't look like a regular service utility account. It's much more colourful and friendly, and has more of a game-like feel. But in terms of data, first of all, they provide more longitudinal information about the user's use of energy within their household. Then they provide a bit of a competitive element by actually tracking your usage against your neighbours, so you can actually see how much you've used compared to people who are of similar sized households to you, or in the same location. And this provides an idea of social norms as well, so you can see are you actually using a lot more than other people. And they also use other kind of tracking mechanisms and ratings, and to give feedback, like I said before, this idea of positive feedback, of giving the user the data that they need to be able to change their behaviour. And in terms of working towards a common goal, they have this really big number on their homepage that demonstrates how much collectively this whole community has saved energy over the lifetime of the project. So I'm not going to read through this whole list, but these are some of the aspects that communities can contribute within an online environment. And I think it's important to design these kinds of elements in serious games if you really want to affect a broad, large-scale impact within a community. And so going forward, the tools that you need to be able to do this is pretty simple. It's threefold. First of all, when you design your serious game, I think you need to plant the seeds that are going to allow this kind of community to build. So if you have to analyse your behaviour, the kinds of change you want to promote, and then ensure that your game design fulfills this need or can steer it in that direction. And the second is to give tools to the community itself. Let them talk to each other. Give them an opportunity to talk to the developers and to give them a chance to say what they like about the game, what can be changed, how it can be improved, and to take that feedback on. And thirdly, I think you need to have a guiding hand, and certainly not in a manipulative way, but in a way that allows you to make sure that the community is acting fairly and appropriately, and that the needs of the community are being met as well. So just to leave you with a serious community issue that's facing Singapore at the moment, the National Health Service in 2010 reported that 1 in 9 Singaporeans are currently obese. And obviously this has a huge health impact on the health department and society at large, and there are lots of issues. And there are many clever people and game designers at this conference who I'm sure we could all come up with ways of encouraging people to eat healthily or exercise more or engage in simple activities. But we can't fail to ignore the importance of community within these environments. For example, people don't eat alone most of the time. They'll shop, prepare, cook, or dine out with family members, peers, work colleagues. And if they're going to participate in physical activity, they're most likely to do that when they're doing so with their partner or their sibling or children or parents. So as serious game designers and developers, I encourage you all to think carefully about your current designs and future designs, and especially if you want to impart real-world behaviour change and have a serious impact in the world, you can't ignore the importance of community and the benefits that this can have for promoting your serious game objectives. And as John Dunn said, because no man is an island. So, thank you.